an exploit, so new buttons and things. I didn't click any of the new buttons, but I wanted to.
In this video, I'll show you how to create a
Shut
YouTube
up.
deck in Power Apps.
Good Lord. Yep. Yeah, poor Dave Ackway is trying to install MOS 2007. I don't even know if I know where to begin. I don't know. 2007, I'd probably bust out the book and just follow along. Oh, they can't hear you. I mean, it's my fault. Hang on. It's the whole default speaker gag. All right, now I bet they can hear you.
Now can you hear the sultry tones of my voice?
Ugh.
My heavy breathing.
I'm glad we got the blue shirt memos.
Yeah, of course. We're in the uniform. So I put this shirt on today and I'm like, man, I think I wore this shirt last week. So I bring up YouTube on my phone and I look at it, no, different blue shirt last week. Last week was a blue t-shirt. This week is a collared shirt.
Oh, you're just getting fancy for people. I'm wearing, you can't really tell, it's my FC Cincinnati. I'm doing the soccer thing.
So last week you were wearing a collared shirt and I was wearing my Mountain Dew t-shirt. So.
I know. Is that better?
I better with or without that light.
You are a little, the sun is, something is shining.
So I have the window open, but it's kind of cloudy out, so I turned the light on, so it's too much. The combination of the two is too much.
Yeah, that was a little too intense.
I get that accusation a lot.
Yeah. One day I'm going to do lighting in here again. I don't know. You know, and I keep pondering, right? So I mean, it's hard to see on here, but you can see it. They can't see it. You know, I keep thinking about like trying to make that a green screen, the orange.
Yeah.
But right now, because of the way the light shines on it, you know, there's 74 different shades, so I could never do it today.
Right.
But then I don't know if I would really like it if I did it. So then
Well, it doesn't have to be green.
Right.
So you could, I mean, if you more properly lit that, you might not have to repaint it.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, I guess I don't know if I would really... Like, it has to be perfect, right? When people green screen and you can kind of see, like, the fuzz around their hair and stuff, not a fan.
And that brings up another point. So you really don't even need the whole wall that way. You just need the bounding box of you that way. So, yeah. Where are we? Are we live? Did we get a URL somewhere?
Yeah, I put it out there already.
Did you?
That's how they know that they can't hear you.
Oh, there they are. Okie dokie.
They can't
so
complain.
I can. Oh, challenge accepted.
I said them, not you. I know you can't.
Oh, okay.
Not making a mistake like I made the other day. Wish I'd made that one on the air.
That was pretty funny.
Should I tell the chat room the story?
Sure.
All right, chat room. So last week, you know, I was really getting my teeth kicked in, right? I was like super duper busy. Everybody needed something. And I
being helpful as usual.
Yeah. And I had a video stuck in my head. So what happens is I kind of start like come up with these videos, and then once they get to a certain point in my head, it's like all I can think about. Like every other thought is about that video, and the only way to get it out is to make the video. But I couldn't. There just wasn't enough time. I had to be in meetings. And so, you know, that guy there was bothering me about something else. And I was like, you know, do you ever just have those days where you're like, man, I really just want to stop doing what everybody else wants, and I want to do what I want for a few minutes? He looked at me like I'd spoken like pig Latin to him. He's like, I don't understand. I mean, every moment of my life is that way. Anytime I'm doing anything other than exactly what Todd Clint wants to do, I'm thinking that. I'm like,
yeah, that's every day. It was.
Oh, and instantly I regret it. I completely realized I was talking to my favorite only child who just couldn't imagine a world where he didn't just do his own thing. You know, like,
my needs and wants aren't front and center. Yeah.
I realized that having a conversation about that with me was not something he wanted, so he was already thinking about how does he get out of this to go back to do whatever it is that he wants to do. I was like, I felt so stupid. It was a dumb thing to say to Todd.
It was funny. Have you ever had one of those moments where you don't want to do what everybody else wants to do? You just want to do what you want to do? Like, well, yeah. As a matter of fact, I have.
Right now?
Yeah. 5 minutes from... Yeah. Oh. 5 minutes ago. Yeah, it was very funny. And as soon as he said, he's like, never mind. No, my God. Never.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course, then we took it to an after dark location that I cannot take this conversation. But then the conversation went somewhere else, and then I was like, wait a minute, I got a meeting. Get away, Todd, you're distracting me. He's like, yep, thanks, I gotta go do that thing I like to do by myself.
Yeah, it was funny. The whole conversation was about how he had too many things to do and he didn't have time, and then we started chatting and took more time.
Yep.
I live for conversations like that. It was a good time.
Like, why isn't my audio good? What are you people complaining about? Oh, Lori, I don't even think I ever knew you were an only child because you don't act like an only child every moment of your life.
Her loss.
It is. Oh, I wonder what mic it's using for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the procrastination chats. That is another service that I provide when Shane has work to do and I just want to chat.
Oh,
that almost ought to have been the title of this podcast, Procrastination Chat.
Why is that my default microphone, you stupid thing?
Son of a... As for the After Dark show, Dave and Eric, Shane and I would love to do it. We think it would be immensely pleasurable for us and immensely entertaining for you guys, but it would also cost us our careers. So that is...
we'd have to do it like with mask on and like a voice anonymizer. And then but there's still a Bold Zebras logo in the background. I'm like, son of a gun!
Oh.
All right, did that fix my audio chat room? I think I realized that for whatever reason, almighty Windows here decided to reset all my settings. I wonder how many calls I've had with people where I've had the wrong mic.
I don't know.
They should have complained.
And we'll talk. It's probably Windows Update doing it to you again.
Yeah.
Yep. Dave was willing to sacrifice our careers for his entertainment. Live. Are you an only child, Dave?
We'll dedicate the first show to Dave if we ever do it.
Been studying into the master, I see, Dave. Excellent.
How about you, Dave? Why don't you do an After Dark podcast?
Now,
BJ, it's the opposite problem. I installed the updates and everything, and it just reset everything. It's like, start over.
Last week, I was on a call with someone from Microsoft, and I was getting the whole services are degrading stuff, and I'm like, I got to reboot because I know that there's something out there. Yeah, they thought that was funny.
I want to have an intervention with him. Like, just pop up something that says, Shane, I'm going to tear your performance up right now if you don't install these updates. And I would happily click install updates.
Yep. Shane, I'm going to spin a wheel in the background of all the things that you're going to use. And whichever one comes up, I'm going to slowly degrade. And then 10 minutes later, I'm going to spin the wheel again until you relent and reboot. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
I've got 1803 on a couple of things. It's funny, 1803 has come down on all of the devices that I don't want and not on the devices that I do want.
Sounds normal.
Yeah, so I got that going for me. Yeah, and I expect that it will start installing on this box in about 3, 2, 1. But this is another box that hasn't gotten it yet.
Yep. I mean, I have another After Dark topic. Maybe we should start making that show for ourselves.
And then we can release it later, and after our careers are already destroyed.
Yes, yeah. After the big scandal comes out, they'll be leaking. It won't be leaking the sex tapes. They'll be leaking the secret podcast.
Yep. That will all come out. Oh, yeah. Funny stuff.
Let's see. We'll get rid of this. Yeah, and basically the other one is so Chewie, still a puppy, even though he's 2 and 105 pounds. Oh, where is Chewie? Is he in here? He's not. You'll hear him bark at some point during the show.
Scratch at the door. Yeah.
But so he likes to chew on underwear. Whatever.
Well, who doesn't? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's fine. But the other morning, my half blurred attempt at getting dressed, put some on, walked downstairs. I realized that in the back of there was a hole about this big. I just wore them the rest of the day. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
My Halloween underwear. But yeah, it was pretty funny. There's more to the story, but I won't. But that's the clean enough version.
And that's the funny part. Like in most situations, when most people tell the story, the funny part would be when they look back and realize that the butt of their underwear is gone and their dog's got a guilty look on his face. But for guys like you, the real punchline is you going, and just walking on it.
Yeah. All right, it's 11 o'clock. We should clean this up. Go back to PG. G. Are we G? Are we G? Are we like E7? What are we?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think 13-year-olds could probably listen to this with adults. Yeah. Oh,
so PG-13. Right? Can we have like an occasional bra shot type of thing? Is that?
Well, I'm wearing a bra right now. So.
All right.
All right. So the visual thing for me when I'm scooting through the timeline. All right. I assume that Lori's ready because Lori is always ready. Counting down. 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast number 387, recorded live May 2nd, 2018. So we'll start with production notes like we always do. I did a fantastic job last week. I think I got this thing out like on Friday morning without even a sweat. So we are all caught up production-wise.
I'm very, very, very proud of you.
Yep. And so that's good. You had something in the notes about it being May already?
I mean, isn't it just weird that it's May 2nd? A couple days from now, we'll have all this silly May the 4th jokes. I'm a Star Wars guy, but May the 4th be with you. Just that joke has never worked for me. I don't know.
It's a stretch. I get it. But what I find really disappointing is there's the new Star Wars movie Solo coming out. May the 4th is a Friday, which is when movies traditionally come out, though really they come out Thursday and drag into Friday, whatever. The new Star Wars movie is not coming out on May 4th. How did they not move? How did Disney, they have changed laws in this country. They have done how did they not make that happen?
I don't know. I don't understand. I still don't understand the Solo movie thing, right? I mean, is that just it? It's not a Star Wars movie, and I don't understand. So let me break it down the way that I understand it. So the cadence that Disney has is they paid $7 billion for Lucasfilms. Of course, they've made that over probably 100 times at this point. But again, Disney is a money-making machine like no money-making machines before it. And so I think their philosophy now is every other year, which I think is the odd years, they come out with Star Wars canon movies. So episode 7, episode 8, episode 9. And in the even numbered years, when they're not raking in the, $300 or $400 million a weekend on those movies, they're making Star Wars story movies. So that was Rogue One, which isn't a, Solo, which is this year's. So I think that's what it is, that they're filling in the gap between The Last Jedi and then whatever the next episode is. Yeah, and I get it. I don't know. I've seen the previews for Solo, and I just didn't see that and go, yeah, right. I don't know. It was a lack of the murder bears, aka the Ewoks running around, or if it was, I don't know what it was, but it just didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. So I'm a little nervous. I can tell you what it was for me. So I saw the first preview when it came out, whatever, and I got all excited and saw it and left deflated and disappointed. For me, it's the guy playing Solo. I mean, not only is he trying to fill Harrison Ford's shoes, which is nearly impossible, but he's just terrible. Like, he doesn't fit that character as I think of that character being. Chewie could do a better job against a character named Chewie as Solo than that guy does. And I think it's partially because he's just a terrible actor. But I think the other thing is Solo has always been, Han Solo has always been this cranky guy. And this kid, like, he smiles in the previews and not like this, I just screwed somebody smile, but like a, hey, I'm happy smile. The sun's out. Kittens. I love kittens.
And it is just not that character. And I hope, because I've been avoiding it because I just don't want to have it all ruined.
Yep.
I hope that the reason that is the case is because the movie is going to show his character being broken. His character starting out as this idealistic whatever, and then whatever happens in the movie turning him into the cranky person that we know and love. But but I will tell you one thing. As I watched that preview, what it has me desiring more than anything, and that I never thought, I want to see a Lando Calrissian movie now. Donald Glover as Lando, for whatever reason, that nailed hard for me, and so that scene, and I don't know, have you watched any of the trailers?
I watched
like the recent ones?
The very first one. No, not any of the recent ones.
So in the recent one, there's like the first meeting between Han Solo and Lando's like in a bar, like a Mos Eisley place. It might even be Mos Eisley. And he's all laid back and there's a table around him and he's all smooth and cool like Billy D. Williams was being Lando. And Han Solo's like, so you're Lando Calrissian. He's like, yeah. He's like, I heard a story about you. I wonder if it's true. And Donald Glover, because like, every story about me is true. Just in this smooth, and I'm like, he just nails it. So that will carry the movie for me.
Man, so folks, I will tell you, I did not know ahead of time that Todd had this much research and thought into the Solo movie. I thought I was just making a vague reference and running through it, but clearly Todd has studied and had cliff notes. If you were watching the video, you would have seen him get out his clipboard of reasons that he was upset. He skipped the one where he said he didn't want another like Kylo Ren, with a shirt off scene type of thing going on in the movie. So.
Yeah. Adam Driver's going to have to hit the gym a little more if they're going to keep that up. That's all I'm saying.
All right, what are we here for?
Well, so awesome. The other thing, because we're now official, we got a sponsor, so I have to give a shout out to the folks at SysKit. So syskit.com, the benevolent makers of SP.Kit and a bunch of other tools. They have signed on. They are an official sponsor of the podcast. And I think for those of you who are watching the video, and who it's close enough that you can see there's a spot on the wall here where I'm trying to figure out what a logo. I might try to squeeze me a SysKit logo up there. They're pretty good at logos and stuff. So doing some stuff for them. Just got an email this morning. I think I'm going to be doing something at their booth at the SharePoint conference here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, so thanks to those guys. If you are a SharePoint administrator or any of those kind of things, go to syskit.com. They've got a bunch of great products on inventorying your farm and seeing the changes that have happened to your farm and things like that. So check those fine folks out. And if you're ever in Zagreb, Croatia, I hear they have a tremendously cool office, brand new. Go check it out.
Fancy, yeah. We really appreciate them. That's very kind of them to.
They're good folks, and they've been friends of ours. So Tony, one of the co-founders, has been a friend of mine for like a decade or whatever. They're just good people. So.
Apparently, 1803 has started installing because you are pixelated. Your voice is still good, but you are pixelated to no end right now. So.
On your end or my end, or both? Maybe they're synchronizing their installations.
I still look beautiful. You look like Jabba the Hutt. So, keeping our Star Wars theme. Is Disney going to sue us for this?
Probably an improvement. So let's go ahead. We're 10 minutes in. Let's go ahead and talk about some topics. If we've got some time. So one of the things that I've been doing is I moved my blog, which is on the world's finest blogging platform, SharePoint 2010. And I moved it over to a new machine, and I've just been kind of going through cleaning some things up that I needed to clean up over the years that I haven't done. And so one of the things that I've done over the last week is I've been going through looking at 404, so the pages that haven't been found, for a couple of reasons. One of them was on the old server, and probably the server before that, I had some short URLs set up, and for a while I was using some great software for that, SharePoint short URL. Great software, have nothing but good things to say about it. But for what I was using, I wasn't using it for exactly their use case, and it was a little more than I needed. So when I installed my new farm, I did not install it. I did not import that in. And instead, I'm using the IIS URL rewrite tool. So that's how all those short URLs get bounced into the blog posts and SharePoint's URLs. But I did not put all those in because I had 600 or 700 of them. And all the things that I'm doing now go into my web config, so I'm a little nervous about that. But so what I've been doing is going through and running a report every day to see what the 404s are, and to see what short URLs I did not put in that people have been hitting. And that's been giving me some good information. Then I go through and I recreate them. So the reason I bring that up, number one, is just to toot my own horn and talk about how I'm a man of the people, and I care what people that go to my blog are looking for and all that. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted to give a shout out, an unpaid shout out, to another tool, Log Parser Lizard, because that's the tool that I'm using to do this. So legitimately, like 10 or 12 years ago, Microsoft put out a command line tool called Log Parser, where you could do SQL-style queries against non-SQL-y stuff, all kinds of stuff. In my case, IIS logs. And so I could make queries and it would give you, but it was a command line only tool. It was really clumsy to use. And so these folks wrote Log Parser Lizard, which is like a SQL query analyzer tool that sits on top of that. So I was able to just bring up one of these things. I want, only pages where the status is 404. I want you to group them and count them so I can see which ones and then order. And so I just have this thing. Every day I just run it. It tells me what pages are there. Super easy.
Got it.
So I like those guys. And it can tell you anything. It could tell me how many bytes go out every day. It could tell me, any kind of query you can think of in your head against those IIS logs it can do, but in SQL style queries. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, and say we covered Log Parser about a month ago, right? Kind of reminding people how the classic tool works, and so Lizard, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad you fixed those links though, 'cause it's really annoying when you're like, go to this short URL, and I'm like, but your short URL doesn't work, Todd Clint.
Yeah, and so I'll put it in the notes, but you can go to lizard-labs.com to grab the tool. But it's super handy for doing this kind of thing. And again, for admins, for looking for, what pages people hit the most and all that, it's a pretty good tool. So free shout out to those guys.
Well, there you go.
And I guess, so to add to your frustration, if somebody out there is viewing and they hit a short URL that doesn't work, shoot me an email or something and I'll make it work.
Tweet him.
Or if there's one that doesn't work. Yeah.
Tweet him and then publicly shame him, do the shame meme.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
All right,
but things are getting better.
Well, very good. That's your blog is a cornerstone of the SharePoint internet, so it's good that you fixed that thing.
Yeah, and it reminded me of another thing. So I didn't have a bunch of like the favicon set up. The Apple iPhones use a specific file for the image if somebody bookmarks your blog on Safari or whatever, and so those were showing up. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't add those when I recreated it, so it helped me get those things back into.
Yeah, it's amazing how many little pieces like that go into creating a website these days. Favicons and the Apple favorite versus the Facebook favorite, the Facebook link article versus it's exhausting.
And I've never you and I talked about that a couple of months ago, and I never set that up. So I need to do all that so that those show up correctly. Yeah,
we should walk through that. 'Cause I don't know if I've done that for Power Apps 911 yet.
Yeah, put that on the list of stuff that neither of us have time to do.
Fair enough, but but it's something you want to do, so you'll do that over the things that other people want you to do.
Sure enough. So another fun thing. So this last week has been super exciting for Office 365 stuff. A bunch, and the rest of the podcast is going to be all about all the neat things that have come out for Office 365 in the last month, or last week.
That's your reward for getting through the first 12 minutes of the show.
Yes, exactly. The first one, and this is another one of those things where Shane and I can't remember where this is in the product cycle and when we can see it and when everybody else can see it. But Microsoft has added this idea of multi-geo tenancy in Office 365. This idea that you can have a single tenant, so everything's in one admin console, but the data can be in different data centers, different geographical locations. And so I was looking at that this weekend and seeing some stuff about that. And I wanted to talk a couple things about that. So first, just to let folks know that it's there. So if you have a company that has people all over the world, something to look into. It seems to be mostly favored towards larger companies. The documentation says you have to have 5,000 licenses or more to use it. I have heard scuttlebutt that is not actually the case, but I couldn't find anything official to back that up. So if you are smaller than 5,000 people, try it anyway. Can't hurt. Yeah,
and so I think to that point, though, you can't, there's not like buttons that are either there or not, right? You have to talk to the account team or your account representative and say, hey, I want into that feature set, and then they light it up for you. So that's step one. So if you are in that space, that's the first step is reach out to Microsoft, say, hey, all your articles say I need to reach out to you. Here I am. Let them decide whether or not 5,000 is the number. But apparently it's still a very manual process to kind of light up on their end. So that's why it's not all the way out, if you will.
Yeah. So give them a holler if you've got a use for that. The other thing I wanted to talk about with that is when I first saw it, to me, it seemed more of a performance thing. Because you can say, if I've got a company that's based in the US, but I've got employees in the UK and employees in mainland Europe, I can move their mailboxes to data centers there. That should, give quicker. Site collections can be there, my sites, those kind of things. And it seemed to me a performance thing, because as you and I have talked about a lot of times, the speed of light, sadly, has started to become a limiting factor in people's performance.
Right.
And so this seemed to be a way to address that. But I was talking to some folks about it last week, and some folks from Microsoft mentioned that is not their primary goal. I mean, it's great if things are faster. Certainly they like that. But really their focus for multi-geo is on data sovereignty, making sure that data doesn't leave geographic boundaries, as defined by law.
Yeah, because definitely, I mean, GDPR, right? It's coming like a 1,000-pound hammer on all of us. And, and the fear, right, is that the really large companies of the world, no problem, they got teams and they'll spend a bunch of money, they'll take care of it. But the small mom and pops, right, even if you're a small little guy who just sells, stress balls or something out of the US here, but you sell them to people over in the Europe, if you have their data on your environment in the wrong country, aka our country where your server is, they can sue you even though you're not over there. I mean, it's kind of daunting. So if you do anything with data across the pond, right, speaking to my American audience, or anyone who does data, works with people in Europe, make sure that you're really thinking about it. Even if you're like, I'm not a big enough company, I don't care. They don't care how big you are. They'll come get you.
Yeah, so funny story about that. My wife works for a SaaS company, and we were talking about things, and we were talking about GDPR. And our company's huge, publicly traded company, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, what are you guys doing about GDPR? So we were talking about different aspects of that they have to worry about. And I'm like, I'm glad that I don't have to worry about that. And she's like, those folks that are sponsoring your podcast, where are they from? I'm like, Croatia. So got any information on them, like their names or phone numbers? Well, yeah. She's like, now you get to worry about GDPR too. I'm like, So, so talking about mom and pops, even so much as having their name and address and phone number, now I need to be able to worry about that. And it's not so much them suing me, because I don't think that they will, but it's about the governing bodies suing me. And the fines are ridiculous. Like Todd has to sell the Trans Am ridiculous. So me, I'm like, oh my God, I'm now impacted by this.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't know name and address was enough, because that's, my German customer. That's the only thing I have on them is their name and their address. I assume it's going to delete their name.
Well, you don't have to now, but I think, and I'm not a GDPR expert, so as you're listening to this, if you know GDPR, try not to scream at your computer. But I think it's not so much that it can't exist here now, but if they want it scrubbed, you have to be able to prove that it was scrubbed, and you have to be able to prove that you don't have it anymore, and you have to provide documentation.
Yeah, I look forward to how that all kind of works itself out, right? Because if you think about it, so then in theory, if I lived in Spain, could I just,
beautiful country,
email Todd my name and address and be like, ha ha ha, you're now in GDPR violation, right? Or, do I have to email it to you, and then the next day email you need to delete that? It'd be very interesting kind of how, I don't know.
Yeah, and as Dan Christian mentioned in the chat room, GDPR is a 4-letter word, and that's the case. So yeah, something. So again, the multi-geo stuff is very much a way for Microsoft to protect themselves and for their customers to protect themselves against those kind of things.
Yeah, we need to find a GDPR expert to come on here. I'm sure they wouldn't, right? Because I'm certain they have a lot better things to do, lots of money to be made right now if they are.
Yeah, at least for the next 3 weeks. Yeah, they're all kind of like talking to accountants. First week of April.
Oh, all right. So, so then finishing up that topic also, so as Microsoft has talked about this stuff, and in the bigger picture, not only of this story, but in the bigger, as more and more customers move more data out to Office 365, the cloud, performance, your network performance is starting to become, a thing, right? If you've got 10,000 employees all using a 1 meg internet connection to get their mailboxes off of Exchange Online, performance is probably a little rough.
Yep.
So Microsoft has been, trying to educate people on things like here, Microsoft publishes all of their endpoints via a web service. So you can consume the information and figure out, all right, if my users need to get to Exchange Online, here's the 74 IP addresses they're going to hit.
Yep.
And then you can optimize your network bandwidth to, not trans, that's something different.
No, that's something different.
But optimize your bandwidth and make sure that, you're saying, all right, traffic going to these 74 IP addresses is most critical, so let's give them the most space. So Microsoft continues to push that story, but not really loudly, which is interesting. But they continue to evolve the tech so that you can automate and build stronger solutions so you can have a better experience for all your users.
Yeah, and this is incredibly exciting stuff. And again, you and I have talked for the past several years on what the next generation of IT Pro job looks like, and this is part of it. So yeah, so there's now these machine consumable lists of endpoints and what they do. And so we can have, and I don't think it's in place yet, but Microsoft envisions network equipment manufacturers building into their network equipment, consuming those things and bringing that in. But the other interesting thing is they've split all that up. So one of the examples that I saw was, being able to prioritize Skype video traffic over Skype for business video traffic over Skype for business messaging traffic. So you can make sure that the service is good for that and some of those things. So I think that's good of Microsoft on their end to split that stuff up in a way that you can control all that. I haven't read that document that we linked up thoroughly yet. I need to do that. But good stuff.
Yeah, I think their head's in the right place, and once again, as always, they're investing in developing ahead of schedule, right? Before we get to the need that they're doing, and they don't get enough credit for that, right? Things like I've told you guys before, right? The whole idea that they're embedding Power Apps into Power BI so you can take your actionable data and take action on it all in one pane, right? No one asked for that yet, but that's the logical next jump after we get people to start adopting Power BI and at mass and stuff. So I don't know. I just love how they kind of do that stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. So another great thing that has come out in the last week or so is Microsoft increased the SharePoint Online storage allocation. And this is one of the things, and I blogged about this, so we will start by promoting that blog post. I have been for many years a consumer of cloud storage. Dropbox, Google Drive, certainly OneDrive for Business, all of those. I like the idea of getting the stuff off of my premises and having some redundancy and all that. But there have been a number of problems with that, syncing and bandwidth and all that. But one of the problems that's popped up for me is all of these places have a 1 terabyte limit, which seems like a lot until you start thinking about, every picture I've taken with the digital camera in the last 10 years and every home movie and, all these kind of things. Terabyte gets eaten up pretty quickly, unfortunately. But none of these places offer storage, and it feels like it hasn't kept up. Hard drives keep getting bigger and bigger, and I realize there's more to that than just raw hard drives, but it feels like that hasn't kept up. And so I was very excited this last week when Microsoft just kind of out of the blue announced that for Office 365, business type accounts, they have increased one of the storage allocation units by 20 times, by 2,000%. And so let's break that down a little bit. When you're an Office 365 customer, you get a terabyte of space just for showing up. And this is a terabyte of space that you can use on any of your Office 365 SharePoint Online site collections, excluding my sites because they're a separate bucket. So as you start growing things out, you get a terabyte. And then for every user license that you have until last week, you got an additional half a gig. So if you had 100 users, you got 50 gigs, so on and so forth, on top of that terabyte, which was fairly okay, generous. It seemed like a lot, but it has been that number forever. Mm-hmm. But then last week, Microsoft said, hey, we're going to increase that. You still get the 1 terabyte base, but instead of getting half a gig per additional user, now you get a terabyte. 10 gigabytes. Sorry. I was looking at the terabyte in my note. 10 gigabytes. So now if you have that same 100 users, instead of getting 50 gig, you get 10 times 10. I'm not even going to say what it is because I'm going to get it wrong. But that is another one of those things where they've just kind of ahead of the curve, giving you more storage. And there's nothing that you need to do except just show up and start using that space.
Yeah, it's insane, right? I mean, 20x. I don't even understand why don't you roll out 5x once a year for 4 years and kind of get all the wins. But they're just like, we're gonna blow your mind. We're just gonna go straight to 20x. Call it a day. Amazing.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And so you talk about, you and I have been troubleshooting for 100 years, and when you're troubleshooting performance, there's this idea of the bottleneck. Everything's great until you get to the small part, and that's what slows it down. But what people don't understand is that bottleneck is not a fixed thing. When you fix the bottleneck, then something else becomes the bottleneck. And then when you fix that, something else becomes the bottleneck. And so for cloud adoption, there have been many bottlenecks over the years. And security was one of them. They fixed that with all of the great things in Azure AD. So that's not the bottleneck anymore, but now something else is. So, network performance, well, they add these endpoints and the quality of service stuff. So that's not the bottleneck anymore. Now something else is. Storage space, so they're just constantly knocking down all these things that we used to use as excuses not to go to the cloud. They're just really making it a no-brainer. And this one is you have so much storage, you can't afford to not.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I guess the one thing I'll remind you though is once this goes live, and I think it's one of those things that's going to trickle out so your tenant doesn't get it just tomorrow. But once it goes live, if you're currently paying for extra storage, be sure you go back in, and once it's went live, take away that extra storage. Save yourself a few bucks. And
good point.
Mind blown. Just 20x. I'm not smart. Mark Crispin in the chat room wrote a formula to calculate. I don't even understand. Just a lot. I can put more pictures of Chewy out there without any problems. Yeah,
and you bring up a good point because some people have had to buy additional storage that they may not need to anymore. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, and can we just take a second to say, if you ever look at Mark Crispin's, avatar in the chat room, I always thought that was chest hair, right? If you look at the top where I don't know, I guess because my eyes are bad, but from where I stand, it's blurry. Yeah, no, look, if you kind of get real close, you realize that that's actually him wearing a collared shirt with a sweater over it, which is so cool. I don't have that type of style. It's not his chest hair flowing out. That is just his collared shirt. So
I'm just surprised because his avatar used to be Deadpool.
Yes.
And so that's is Deadpool 2 coming out here in a couple of weeks.
Maybe we can start a movie podcast. Who knew you thought so much about these things?
I do. So I know it'll always be chest hair to me, Mark. You got that.
All right. So what do you got here? Huge increase.
I already did that one. Try to keep up. We're on D now.
I was not paying attention. All right.
You're not. Life's just passing you by, Shane.
So then, how about this? Use the OneDrive client instead of Explorer View or Map Network Drive. What is that all about, Mr. Clint? You are a resident OneDrive expert. Why are you telling me to use the client?
So again, as I love to toot my own horn and promote my own blog posts,
shocked.
This is another toot. A little toot, but a toot just the same. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had a couple of conversations that were very similar, and that inspired me to write a blog post because now I can just point people to this blog post, and I'll have all the links and all the arguments together. But one of the things, you and I, again, have been doing SharePoint forever, and a couple of the tools that people have used over the years to get around annoyances in SharePoint is Explorer View and Mapping as Network Drive. And these were two techniques that people used to interact with SharePoint files in a more comfortable way, in the Windowsy way, Explorer and all that. And so Explorer View is basically, you go into SharePoint, you go into a document library, you click Explorer View, an Explorer window pops up. It is the SharePoint library. You can copy files in and out. You can do whatever, but very Windowsy. And then Map a Network Drive was the ability to map a network drive to a location in SharePoint, and then it just shows up in Explorer as your M drive or your J drive or whatever. Both of those technologies very handy, but they have always been very fragile, very rickety. And they all depended on different technologies that weren't SharePoint, WebDAV, and front page extensions, those kind of things. But we didn't have any other option, so we kind of had to do the dance with them to get that functionality. Because there were some, if you wanted to upload a bunch of files with SharePoint 2007, there was very few options. But here in the year 2018, I've had a couple of conversations in the last month about people wanting to use those techniques to do some of those things. And number one, they just don't work. They never worked very well in their prime, in their heyday when they were, in high school. They didn't work very well. And now, 10 or 12 years later, it's even worse. But there are some such situations, like if you've got Windows 10 and you're using Edge, they flat out don't work at all, and likely never will. Like that's just, Microsoft's not going to spend a lot of time improving Edge, and they're certainly not going to spend a lot of time improving those things. And so as I was having these conversations with the users, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to get Explorer View to work. I've tried this, this, and this. And in my head, I'm thinking, this is a OneDrive problem. This isn't an Explorer View problem. So my blog post is about how to do the things that you were doing with Explorer View and mapping network drive, but doing them with the OneDrive Next Gen Sync client instead. And so for the Explorer View, the people that I was talking to for that, they wanted to upload a ton of files into SharePoint. They just wanted, 100 files, whatever. They wanted to lasso it in Explorer and drag it over to Explorer View and have it all go up there. Yep. And I said, well, we can do that, but now you already have the Next Gen Sync client, hopefully, because that syncs you with OneDrive Consumer, Office 365, SharePoint Online, and all that. Sync to that folder in OneDrive. That creates a spot for it in Windows Explorer for you. Open up another Windows Explorer, drag it over that way. And then the sync client in the background will upload all those files for you. And they'll do timeouts, and they'll understand the networking stuff and all that. And it will not crap out on you like Explorer View probably will. And then when you're done, you can unsync that document library if you don't want to anymore, or do whatever. You're not stuck with it. The other thing that was great about this was, so I brought that up, and they're like, well, but I don't want to keep these files on my desktop all the time. With Explorer View, they would just go away. With the Next Gen Sync client last year, they debuted this on-demand sync functionality. So now after it's all over and copied over, you can right-click on it and say Cloud Only, and then it no longer takes any space on your desktop, but it still shows up. It still looks like it's there. So you can use PowerShell or Command Prompt or whatever to interact with those files, and then the sync client is smart enough to pull them down when it needs them and clear up the space when it doesn't. Pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, and for the network drive one, that's a little different usage. That's usually people just wanting a short way to get to SharePoint libraries. Again, sync up that library with the Next Gen Sync client. It shows up in Explorer. You can just click it, drag and drop, all of that. And again, doesn't take up space like the network drive doesn't. So, yeah.
I don't know. As much as I love Power Apps, sometimes I feel like you love OneDrive just as much. And I'm assuming it's the same thing. When you talk about OneDrive like this, I just kind of zone out. I take a nap over here for a minute. I'm assuming you do the same thing when I talk about Power Apps. So I get it. Yeah, and it's good stuff. And the OneDrive team, this is one of those where I like to make fun of folks. I don't know if you've picked up on that or not. And several years ago, the OneDrive thing was just something that was rife for ridicule. And we did, and Microsoft kept telling us how great it was, except it wasn't. And we made a lot of fun of them. And I think it was an MVP summit, some event, I forget what it was. The guy who was in charge of OneDrive at the time, Ruben Krippner, came up and said, yep, all the things you complain about of OneDrive are absolutely true. Which was refreshing because normally it's all, well, there's pivot involved and you're using it wrong, you're holding. And he's like, folks, everything you want to complain about is absolutely valid, every one of them. And then he said, but we're going to fix them. And we're all like, get out. There is no way. And then they did. And so I think by nature of that, I almost feel a loyal obligation to like OneDrive because they fessed up to it. They said they were going to fix it, and then they fixed it. That's fair. And well, then I guess let's skip E and go straight to F so you can just continue this, and I'll just stay zoned out for a couple more minutes. So go ahead. Wake me up when it's over.
Yeah. So one of the things, one of the new things that Microsoft has come out, and this isn't completely new, but inside of OneDrive, and this is OneDrive Consumer and OneDrive for Business, Office 365, if you use the web interface, so not the Next Gen Sync client I was just gushing over a minute ago, but the web interface, they have been slowly, or maybe even not so slowly, adding file viewers inside of the web experience. So now and it's been the case for a while, if there was an image in OneDrive and you hit the web page, you click it, and you would see it in your browser. That's not impressive. Everybody does that. But now OneDrive has over 300 file types that it supports in the browser without native applications. So things like Adobe Photoshop, there's a bunch of medical imaging things, sounds, movies, whatever, all inside of the browser. So that has two super cool things that it does for you. Number one, as you move around from machine to machine, you don't have to have these things installed everywhere.
Yep. So,
and we're at the spot now. It was funny how like 5-6 years ago, the hard drives in our machine were like big, they were a terabyte, but our cloud storage was small. It was like 300 meg. Now we've completely flipped. Now our cloud storage is a terabyte, but we've all got SSDs in our machines. They're like 200 gig, 500 gig. So not having to install a bunch of applications is a win. I mean, that's a good thing for cloud storage. I don't have to have this installed everywhere. Have it installed in the place where I'm creating, but not consuming. So that's cool. But number two, these browsers work in mobile devices. So now you with your iPad don't have to have whatever it is because it's all done in the browser.
I think number two is the bigger story, right? It's the bring your own device is so prevalent. Everyone wants to look cool by walking from meeting to meeting carrying an iPad. Mm-hmm. But with an iPad, you natively can't open all the files you want. But now if they're in OneDrive, lo and behold, you can.
Yeah. And the reason I laughed out loud in the middle of that was because before we went online, I checked to make sure that this machine wasn't going to download 1803. And then in the middle of it, you're like, I bet your machine's installing 1803. That's why I just got the important updates are pending. Could we restart now? I just got that in the middle of my deal.
When you watch the show afterwards, you're going to see when it happened.
Yes, this is the moment, the last time my machine worked correctly.
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, I think this is awesome functionality from, like I said, the device standpoint. But then, the 2 weeks ago, I was talking to somebody who's developing a product, right? And they're like, yeah, our product's going to do blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to build a file viewer inside of it. And we're going to handle 7 different files. And I'm like, are you stupid? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, OneDrive, sure, you have access to 300, whatever the number is these days, file viewers through the web interface. How about you just either iframe that in or push them out there, Let someone who is spending millions, if not billions of dollars to make these viewers work on iPhones and Androids and all these things, let them do the file editing instead of you writing a little ghetto fabulous one that only does, I don't know. It blew my mind that someone was actually thinking about writing one of these in this day and age. Oh, I lost Todd, didn't I? Hold on. He is frozen. He was so sad that I was talking that he froze. I bet 1803 just took his computer out. All right. Well, then, in that case, I guess I will just continue the show. Oh, I love it. Love it. I love it. Yep. There you go. The call just dropped. All right. So I'll power on and we'll figure out how we fix this in post. So we talked about the file viewers. You guys are cracking me up in the chat room. So one of the other things I want to point out, another big Microsoft announcement this week was Microsoft Forms. They went GA, right? General availability. And, while a lot of the features didn't change because the Forms stuff already worked, right? You've probably been using them or taking surveys on Microsoft Forms already. The big change that they didn't really say very loudly was it used to be you were capped at 5,000 responses for your Forms survey. Now it is 50,000 responses. So that's pretty awesome. That's a big change. So I want to make sure everybody kind of caught that Forms went from 5,000 to 50,000 as it's now in general availability for commercial customers, right? I think, right. It's the whole licensing rollouts, blah, but 50,000 is either here or coming very quick. The next note, ironically, so number G in the story here is that the Windows 10 April update is trickling out. So it was going to be version 1709. Looks like it's going to be version 1803. And apparently if you're doing a podcast, it will install during the podcast and take you offline. I'm not even getting Skyped by Todd. I'm assuming that he's just been removed from the internet while 1803 installs. So that is hilarious. So 1803, be careful about when it shows up for you. There is the whole little checkbox you can check in Windows Update that says pause updates for a while. Maybe next time before the show starts, we'll tell Todd to click on that. The last of the topics here, I wanted to hit a couple Power Apps videos I put out this week. So there's a Power Apps video on flyout menus, floating buttons, and the XY control. So how to position things on the screen, and more importantly, how to position things off the canvas. Turns out that's a little harder than you probably thought it was. So if you try and move something to -100, you can't just do that. You got to use a control to do it. So I cover all that in that video. And interestingly enough, that video kind of, it went viral by my terms. Over the weekend, they got like 400 views, which for me, something I released on Friday afternoon to wake up Monday morning and have 400 views, that was a lot. So it's been a pretty popular one. Also, there was another video, not by me, but a friend of mine who lives really close to where my parents live. Very weird. So Vivek, he did one he built a YouTube deck in Power Apps. So he uses some of the YouTube APIs to pull in the data and then kind of builds this sorting tool. So that was an interesting video. I've got that linked here. I think that would be worth watching if you're into that type of stuff. But what's more interesting was Vivek, I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but in his screenshots, he used, or in the video, like he added YouTubers, right? And so he added me and Audrey and a couple other people. And it was very interesting because then he tagged us in his post, like, oh, credits to these guys. But that got us all to see it. It got us all to retweet it. Got me to subscribe to his channel. So if you're ever trying to engage, it never hurts to take advantage of people's vanity, right? So, I retweeted it. And I was like, look in the screenshot, it's me, right? Because I'm vain like that sometimes. So neat little trick if you're ever trying to get a little more, promotion around your stuff. Find a way to incorporate those people that you want to, that are, have a lot more oomph in that space, and get them to push your stuff because you included them and they want to show themselves off. I don't know. Kudos to Vivek. Good little trick there. Also then, Todd says he might be back. Let's see. We'll pause here. Laura, you can put a pause in.
Can you hear me at least?
Yeah, so I had to recall you back in. So I think, you should be back to fully in. So before we unpause, I just kind of keep powering on. Do the wave thing so you can find it later, right?
Yep.
But I've been powering on, so I'm currently talking about the Power Apps videos and making fun of 1803 for destroying your machine.
Yeah, it was on my cable modem.
Oh, all right. Well, then I guess we'll just pick back up and we'll say I'll welcome you back and we'll let you tell the tale. Whoa.
Okay. All right.
Hey, and look who I just found. I had this little notification. I looked over. I was trying to be professional and keep focused, but Todd distracted me. Todd wanted back in. So, Todd, thanks for joining us for your own podcast. Care to explain?
Yeah. So it was funny because we were just talking about the 1803 thing, but it was actually my cable modem that went down. Because I've got another machine right here, I was ready to jump back on thinking this one got killed, but it was the whole house. So I had to go in and do all that, which is funny because as I was walking through, I wanted to turn a light on. I'm like, I can't control my Hue lights because the internet's down. That's, yeah. So we were talking about the file viewer thing and the seminal moments thing. So I had a seminal moment around that thinking 10 or 12 years ago. I worked for a software company that wrote stuff that sat on top of SharePoint, and started with SharePoint 2003 and went on through that. And one of the hurdles they had pitching their software to customers, they're like, you install SharePoint, it's this thing, here you go. And then our stuff sits on top of it and does great stuff. Customers loved our stuff, but didn't like SharePoint. And one of the things they didn't like about SharePoint was there was no recycle bin. And so our folks wrote a recycle bin for SharePoint so that they could sell customers on SharePoint to sell the product. Well, then what was it? SharePoint 2007 came out with a recycle bin, I think. And I remember talking to our lead developer. I'm like, man, Microsoft is stealing all your rhymes. Like, you come up with this recycle bin and now Microsoft's adding recycle bin. Doesn't that make you mad? He's like, no, absolutely not. I'm excited. I'm like, why? This was your thing. He's like, because I'm not here to write a recycle bin app. I'm here to write this other app, and everything that Microsoft does for this recycle is just that much less I need to do and gets me back to doing the thing that I'm really here for in the first place. I'm like, oh yeah. So back to your example, people making this crazy thing and all this, and there's just this piece that they need to do a file viewer. Let Microsoft do it. Go back to doing the thing that you really want to do. Let Microsoft handle it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So, wait, just to be clear though, so 1803 is not to blame here. We're blaming your cable modem.
Yeah, 1803. So I did, when the thing came up, it said, reboot now, tell me the time, or remind me later. I hit reboot later and everything's fine. Or yeah, remind me later and everything's fine. The machine has not rebooted, but I did have to go in and reboot my cable modem.
Gotcha. So maybe just all the bits of 1803, it just overwhelmed your cable modem. It couldn't handle it.
I'm fine blaming 1803 in a bigger sense, but it wasn't this machine, specifically.
As long as we're clear with the blaming list.
Yeah. So carry on with your power apping stuff. I'll get in my napping position.
Yeah. Well, good news for you. Missed a bunch of it. But so then the last one is, this one's been a long time coming. I don't know if you guys know, but Microsoft loves to tell the story of Power Apps and Flow and kind of how they work together. And so I've put that off for a year now. I just wasn't ready to embrace Flow, but this week I finally did embrace Flow. I worked with John Levesque from the Flow product team to figure it all out. And so within an hour of the show being over, I will have posted my fabulous video that finally shows you how to make a Power App that takes an image and then pushes that image and metadata to your SharePoint Online environment and then gets a link back to that thing, back to your Power App, all being facilitated by Flow. Yeah, not the Flow from Progressive, but Microsoft Flow. So it was crazy. I mean, I spent probably 2 days kind of working this all out. 2 days became a 40-minute video. After 4 hours of editing that 40-minute video, it became a 38-minute video. It was a lot, but there's a lot of cool stuff in there, and I'm really excited because now I think I can finally say that Flow is on my utility belt. I've got some really cool stuff going there.
Yeah, and Flow obviously is a connector between services, much akin to Zapier or IFTTT. And IFTTT was one of those things, I was latecomer to that. A bunch of other people used it a lot, Laura Rogers, and they were loving it and talking about how great it was. But until I had an actual use for it, it kind of bored me. And then once I started using IFTTT, I use it for a bunch of things. And so Flow is Microsoft's implementation of that. This is another one of those things where this is like the next generation of web application interneting things. And for exactly the reason we just talked about. Now, if I have a product that does a thing, I don't have to write all of the different ways it's going to do other stuff. I can find somebody else that's already done it, write a Flow connector and let them do the other part. I love that.
Yeah, this is what I keep yelling at all these startups I work with here in town. I'm like, quit writing pieces. Go connect to Flow, go connect to IFTTT or Zapier or whatever one you want. Connect there and then take advantage of the hundreds, if not thousands of connections they have. Quit writing your own plumbing.
Yeah.
The same we told people with, authentication. Quit federating to all these other sources. Federate to Azure AD. Let it federate to everybody else. It's so simple, people.
Yeah, I find myself, because of that, I find myself thinking less of companies that don't have IFTTT connectors or don't have the IFTTT, because I see how all the pieces fit, and I'm like, this should be so simple. Write this and be done with it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this technology. So I'm glad that that Power Apps and Flow have finally gotten to where they're on your radar now. So I'm interested to see what cool things you're going to do.
I can't wait until you watch my video. You get to see Chewy in the video. I mean,
I don't watch any of your videos.
Oh,
I was complaining to Shane yesterday how angry I was with his YouTube channel because for whatever reason now in my browser, when I start to type, YOUT to bring up YouTube to do something, his stupid channel auto completes in my browser. So I have to go out of my way to delete /Shane Young Cloud at the end so that I can just get to YouTube to watch my heavy metal videos or funny cat videos or whatever. It's actually causing me extra work now, and I'm
It warms my heart.
I hate you and your YouTube channel right in the face.
Yeah, and then the last little piece of Power Apps, I didn't have this, but I don't know if it's hard for me to see what you can see there, but well, you can't see it, but they can see it. Finally, yeah, you're over here, right? But they're over here.
Well, I can't. Yeah. Well, yeah. There you go.
We made Power Apps 911 stress balls, right? So I running the SharePoint 911 playbook. First pass the SharePoint 911. First swag was a stress ball. Power Apps 911 now has a purple stress ball. As long as we don't make koozies, I think we're in good shape. But my kids told me I'm legit now because I got merch. And then speaking of my kids, in the Power Apps video about flyout menus, at one point in the video I floss. Which I don't even know if do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
So you got a couple more years, but all the kids went from Minecraft to Fortnite. So
okay,
Minecraft is like, who would ever play that? they all play Fortnite. And so Fortnite, I won't get into what the game is. I mean, I won't go too far, right? But it's just this game where, you drop 100 people on an island, they all battle, last man standing wins. It's probably not really meant for my 5-year-old who's really good at it, but I'm a bad parent. One of the things they like about it, though, is like when you win, there's like these dances you do. So there's flossing, which is one. There's the L dance, which is completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And then like some of the NBA players, like the one dude made a 3 the other day to win a game, and after he made the 3, he stopped and he when you heal yourself in Fortnite, you do the special move. So anyway, my kids thought it was really funny that in the middle of the video, for whatever reason, I started flossing. And so the fact that you don't know what flossing is, I envy you because it annoys the crud out of me.
Yeah, my kids, so my oldest 2 are girls, and they just haven't had as much interest in that kind of stuff. My 4-year-old, though, wants to play video games so bad, but he's 4, and there's just not a lot that he can do, but he's all into that. Yeah. So my time is coming.
How did you, I know you were kind of thinking about getting into gaming with him. Have you done anything with that, or is that still kind of on the radar?
Still on the radar. I think you mentioned getting the Switch, and I think that might be the way that I go, but just haven't gone there yet. Okay. But yeah, so if anybody's got video games that are good for 4-year-olds, let me know.
All right, and so Daniel's like, hey, I got to drop early. No, Dan, we're just really late.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, Todd, quickly tell us all about the community corner.
Yeah, a lot of stuff here in the community corner this week, and a new edition. This Friday and Saturday, Nashville is the place to be. They're having Cloud Friday and SharePoint Saturday Nashville. So shout out to Daniel Glenn and the folks from there. I hope they have a good event. I know they will. And then June 2nd is SharePoint Saturday Montreal. So if you're up there and speak French, that's the place to go. Though I think they have some English sessions now. August 11th, SharePoint Saturday Charlotte. Our own Dan Christian will be there for that one. I'm sure it will be a fantastic event. And then the new edition, I just saw this show up in my Twitter stream, so I'm giving these guys a shout out. SharePoint Saturday New England is coming up October 20th. It's going to be in Burlington, Massachusetts. I've gone to SharePoint Saturday New England's before, though the one that I went to was in New Hampshire. But if you're going to go up to New England, going in the fall when the leaves turn, you just can't beat that location that time of year. So by all means, go up there and see those guys.
Is that because you live in a cornfield and you don't have leaves?
I don't live in a cornfield. You have to go at least a full city block away to get to a cornfield. So let's not exaggerate that I live in a cornfield, all right?
My bad. I'm doing the dance now.
Yes, do the loser dance. So shameless self-promotion. Here in just 3 weeks, we're going to be at the SharePoint conference. I've got a blog post out there that has all of the things that I'm going to be doing. We have a couple of things to add to that. You and I are going to be doing a podcast after the keynote talking about our insights on that. Yes, you and I are both lovers, fine connoisseurs of keynotes.
I hope they give us talking points. Will someone make a OneNote for us?
I think for Shane and I, our love of keynotes is that is time that we don't have to do anything and we can go stay in bed, not together, but stay, sleep, that never mind. But we don't normally go to keynotes is what I'm saying. But we will be paying rapt attention to that one. But you can go to SharePoint Conference NA, sign up for that, use the referral code Clint because I have fewer referrals than Shane and you guys don't want Shane to win. So Clint, sign up for that one. And again, I've got a blog post that I will link in the show notes that has all the things that I'll be doing there. And then in August, you and I will be in Boston. We'll always have Boston. And that steak.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We're going to have to enjoy one of those or 2 of those.
Oh, good God. And that is it. So thanks, everybody, for sticking around for the podcast. If you need to reach out to us, I am Todd Clint. You can email me, todd@toddclint.com. Hit me up on Twitter @ToddClint. On the web, toddclint.com.
Shane at powerapps911.com, right? You can tell me about how much you enjoy the purple stress balls. At Shane's Cows on Twitter. So awesome.
Yep. Thanks, chat room. We'll stick around for a little bit. But everybody else, we will see you next week.
Toodles. And
we're out. Another visual dealio for me. Whoa. I feel like Doctor Strange. Right. Have you seen the Avengers movie yet?
No, I saw the stuff that was like everyone was silent after it, and it became too epic for me.
It was interesting. I liked it. One of the directors is a guy from Iowa, so there's been a lot of hubbub about that around here.
Gotcha. All right, I am off. It's time for me to eat some lunch-rooney.
Go have some lunch.
But at some point, I'll circle the wagon with you on B31.
Yes, do that sooner rather than later as I start producing all this.
Yeah, I just the one thing that you said, when I wrote the article, I couldn't find that said anywhere out loud.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna be doing lunch, and then I should be back by like 1:30 my time, 2:30 your time.
Okay.
So
cool. I'll be here hopefully making magic.
alrighty. See you, man.
See you. Bye, chat room. Oh wait, I gotta hang up this thing first.
You do.
I forget the order of this stuff. Oh, hang on. All right, you guys aren't cut off yet. You're close though. You're close.